Phil is a Swiss-American contemporary painter, graphic designer, and philanthropist. I would add to that, he's a co-founder of Unit, and he's responsible for our brand. I hope you guys can follow us on social media and go to our website and see Phil's work. He's brilliant and a delightful person to work with. Thank you so much for being here, Phil. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much, Myra, and everyone that was readily involved in putting this whole thing together. Pardon my voice. I hope you'll stay with me through the few minutes remaining. I'm glad Anne took a couple of extra, so I'd have to cover less. So thumbs up.
Thank you for being here, even if you're not 100%. Well,
yeah. So, yeah, let me just kind of get right into the presentation and share the screen here. There we go. Is that better? Okay, well, interesting enough, when I was in art school, I was in Seattle, Washington. Since I'm an American Swiss, I'll get back to why the Swiss and the American is. But I had an assignment to work on a brand for myself. And so the teacher said, we need to create a logo and a business card. And so I was working on all these really creative, crazy ideas. And my teacher came up to me and said, Phil, do you not read your last name? And I was like, Earnhart. And she goes, yeah. Do you not see anything? I'm like, no, you know, and I'm 23 and 22. And she's like, you mean for 22 years, you never realized that art is in your last name? I said, no, I never saw it. So it's one of those funny things that now I get to use my last name as my business, and I bring out art as a highlight. And as simple as it is, that's my brand now. So kind of 65 is the year of my birth. I was actually born in Zurich, Switzerland, to a missionary family. I was the fourth in line. I have an older sister and three other brothers, two brothers that were older, a brother that was younger. And then once we moved back in 1977 to the United States, we adopted three more children from South Korea. So there's a big family of 8 children. In 1990, as you see here, is where I finally made it through art school. And I graduated, had my diploma, and started on this journey as an artist, as a graphic designer. I had a degree in communication design. And I did paint some, but not a lot. My older brother, which is on this call too, he was the fine artist, and I was just the graphic artist. And I was we lived together for a little bit, and I used to just watch him paint and kind of see what he's doing and why he's doing what he's doing, trying to copy what he's doing. So I'm a good copier. So if anything that you see, it's probably was copied from him. So in 2007, I kind of went through this personal crisis, through some things that went on in my life, within my own family, kind of pressured me or put me into another space. And I kind of started to paint again, because it was the medium where I could find myself to be able to express what was happening inside. And so it took a couple of years of trying different things and mastering certain things and destroying other things, and trying to find a place where I can bring my skill sets to a place where I can actually put something together. And I finally hit a place in 2009 where I felt I was expressing some works. And to the right here, as you see in this slide, you see some painting of these people. And I did this, and I had a couple of paintings behind me one day as I was FaceTiming with a good friend in Florida. And we were talking about some things, and he finally just stopped and he looked and he said, "Hey, why do your people in your painting have no arms?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? Wow, I never saw that." And it just finally realized that these paintings, which was a series of 21 paintings, all had people without arms, which was the very nature of the family that I grew up in. We were close, huge, big family pictures, but there was no embrace. So the embrace wasn't there. And I was actually painting my upbringing and painting what that upbringing felt to me personally. And so I called it Humanity Broken. But the funny thing was, I was probably not brave enough to call it Phil Broken, which is really what I should have been. So I called it Humanity Broken. Let's just talk about everybody else. I'm included, but I'm one of a few billion people. But the reality was, it was me that was broken. And I realized that. And that was a place, a seed for my creativity that began. On the day before my show in 2010, I was in the gallery working with the gallerist, and he was finishing the last light adjustment, and I was hanging the last paintings. And I suddenly heard him say, "Phil, Phil." And I was like, and he was up on a ladder, and I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he's like, "You okay?" And I went, "I think so." And he goes, "You've been standing there for 10 minutes, frozen." And I realized that I was then as naked and completely alone. I was in a place where I had to face who I was. Where it wasn't humanity broken, but it's Phil broken. It's a place where I realized that I had a place to go. And it was kind of like, what am I going to do? In 24 hours or less, there's going to be hundreds of people walking around here going, "Have you seen this? This guy's nuts. This guy's crazy. This guy's troubled." And at that point, I decided, this is who I am. This is my path. This is my place where I can connect to humanity, connect to myself, connect to humanity, and be able to connect further through my art. And so that was kind of the place of transformation for me. I stumbled upon this flow chart by Miali. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's tough. But it kind of gave me some thoughts. And as I was reflecting upon my own life, I was kind of like, well, I understand this, I get it. But to me, it was a little too technical. It was too organized. And I felt that life isn't quite as organized as it is. And that for me, it felt much more that I needed to come. Yes, there's the challenges, and yes, there is the abilities and the skills here. But then there's much more of a place of flow that starts with wonder and doubt and kind of connects then into the rest of your life, where then flow happens. And so I kind of started to look at that more as it is part of who I am in my life. And so this was a series of paintings, one in a series of paintings that I created a couple of years ago. And if you look at it, there's a lot of depth. So the painting is actually on the left-hand side, and then a closer up on the right-hand side, and the full painting there on the left. There's a lot of depth, and it was a using of a type of technique that continued to bring the background again to the foreground. So it's layered upon layers of layers. And by wetting this, just put on acrylic paint and wetting it down in certain areas again, it would lift it off and bring the background back into the foreground. So you have this depth of place where the doubt of where it's going to happen, what's going to happen, you're unsure of what's going to come forward again. But by then wetting it down and scraping it off and putting new layers, then it revealed new areas. And so doubt of what was going to happen and where it was going to go was very critical in the movement. And that painting took an hour. Now this painting took 6 months. And it's why? Because it wasn't, I couldn't get it done. The flow started, but then the flow ended 6 months later. And the beginning of this painting, and if you try to remove the black heavy lines, that was the painting 6 months earlier. And it stood in here where I create my art. And 6 months later, when there was death of Michael Brown that happened in the United States, about where so many songs were written and things were written about I can't breathe, which basically also was what happened 6 years earlier with with Michael Brown. It was back then in 2014, sorry, and George Floyd in 2020, when I was working on this, when he was killed, and he couldn't breathe, and he was actually choked to death. Those two things came together, and that was 6 years apart, and this was 6 months apart. And so the hand was then finally raised up fully as I painted with immense amount of motion with these oil sticks, the rest of the story to finish it up. Through that flow out, which started in a lot of doubt.
Waouh, il est incroyable cet artiste. Votre frère, ce qu'il fait.
Hello, someone.
I'm so
speaking?
sorry. Please mute yourselves, guys.
It's all right. When I finished the prior one, I came into this flow of wanting to express more about the difficulties that the Black and brown people have in the United States, and the foreseeable future of them, of how difficult it's going to be to navigate this place. And so I envisioned within me this young child, this baby wrapped in the mother's cloth, but already branded as a criminal and ended up being killed on the streets. And so you have the outline of a crime scene with the crime places of maybe the bullets or things that people take pictures of, that police take pictures of. And so when you look at it from a distance, it's almost strange because you see one baby, but you see the grown person, and it kind of is eerie in that. And I'd never painted like this before, so it was a completely new place to come. So I used this idea of doubt to be able to project myself forward. Here's one of the later paintings that I've created, and just to talk about flow and how I got into flow, and to watch myself paint. This is the first time I took a video of me painting, or took time lapse of me painting, and then watching it was quite interesting to see myself as I was working. So basically, the painting is interesting because it's two heads together, one's upside down, and I actually painted it this way, and I painted upside down. I didn't turn it around to simplify it for me, but I wanted to paint it that way to give that perspective. But you can hang the painting either way you want. So you can have it this way or this way. And that was kind of interesting. But as I watched that, I could see myself in this place of flow, because I didn't spend a lot of time farther away than maybe 30 to 40 centimeters. I was up so close, and it's 160 by 240. So it's a huge painting. And when I realized that, of how beautiful when you're in flow, that you're just experiencing, you're just being, you're not thinking, as Anne was talking about. It's no longer the frontal cortex, it's your being expressed, that you don't have to see the whole thing. You're just in that, you become one with that. And so Oprah once said that art is prayer, and it's this form of communication. And here comes a little bit my missionary son speech, because that's my background. That's the language I know, is that it's a form of communication that kind of releases this deep thing that's within you. It's where really the human and the divine connect. So it's when we are one. And in this place of flow, it's kind of very beautiful because we also become one. And prayer is then also wonder. And wonder is this sense of awe. It's this place where we're like in awe of something, but wonder is also doubt. And wonder comes from the word doubt. And that's a very beautiful thing, because it's this inability to grasp what's coming. And so we have doubt, we have insecurity, we have some things we don't really know. It's kind of this death, burial, resurrection field. It's this place where what's going to happen on the other side. And then when we enter fully into it, then the beauty happens, because we then completely connect together, and we let go of the grasp, which is, if we just look at skill and we grasp hold of our skill, then we're not connecting together with the challenge. And so the challenge needs to come up as well in the skill level, that it continues to propel us forward. So we're always in a state of doubt a little bit until we enter in, and then we can flow through. And this is by Neri Oxman, which is a tremendous artist, and is also a person that has connected many different realms of hybrid, and a hybrid artist, definitely. And then doubt basically is the essential piece that brings us to art, which is create. And so when we express what is happening between the divine and the human, or maybe it's more of the intersection between the divine and the human, when we flow and become one, then art happens, then creation happens, then things are created. And the most beautiful things can happen. And that's where flow happens. So, yeah, so you have to kind of question yourself. In order to create, you have to be in the place of doubt and wonder, oh, wow, this is beyond me. How can I? And then you step into it, and you man up a little bit, you woman up, you come to another place, and you have to be a little uncomfortable, and you have to feel alone. And that's why I shared that story at the beginning of me feeling naked and alone at the gallery the day before, because when you're uncomfortable and you feel alone, then you connect with the very deepest part of who you are. And when that happens, that's the fertilizer for creativity. So, and I have another quick story here because this was interesting. For some odd reason, after finishing a couple of other series of paintings that I was working on, I started to paint landscapes, and I was terrible at it. It was horrible. It was pathetic. I was not going anywhere, and I was kept looking at it and wanting to put a dot on it. And I was scared, and I was in a new place, and I was doubting myself, because if I took the paintbrush or these little stamps that I created of shapes and I would put paint on them, and if I put it on the canvas, it wasn't like a digital art piece where I could just Command Z and it's gone. And I can reverse it. It will be there. And so that place in me took me about an hour of sitting there contemplating, where am I going to put this dot? Why am I putting this dot on? And then I just did it. So I was feeling uncomfortable and I felt alone, but I stepped through, and this is what came out. And the whole series ended up being about 22 paintings, and they were all called I Am Loved. And that's that connection again to the divine, to who you are, and that we are individual. Like other speakers have talked about, we are a collection of things that come together that we are. And this, and it's not what she said, accepting all of your shadows. I wrote it down quickly. Accepting the light and the shadows, accepting, putting all the dots together, and this is all me. And through that, I can look into the distance, into the horizon, and see that I'm much more than just the light and the darks of the things that I've accomplished or not accomplished. I'm much more than that. And we're connected and interconnected with one another. But it starts with me. So just quick, doubt is a tremendous gift actually for creativity. And sometimes we don't like to feel this tension, but it's so important. So the greater the doubt, the greater the awakening, the smaller doubt, the smaller awakening, no doubt, no awakening. Or my God, why have you forsaken me? You know, this place of doubt, this existential doubt that there isn't a God, and God is calling out to God saying, where are you? Or doubt is not susceptible to the promises of happiness, perfection, well-being, or success. So it's not a quick fixed solution. Doubt isn't, or creativity or flow is not going to say, okay, now we're all whole and everything's perfect and you'll go on your way and be singing happy tunes and whistling and all things are good. No, it is a place where we start, where we're alone. There's no self-judgment, but we're completely present within us. We are fully immersed, and we understand that the art that we're doing, that we're creating, the audience is one. It's for me, no one else. If someone else sees it, is touched by it, great. But it starts with me. If you write a book, so many writers have writer's blocks after chapter 2. Why? Because they start thinking about how is it going to proceed, or how many artists don't start the painting or get started on it and already begin to think about what other people perceive or what they see, instead of just seeing it as the audience of one. And then the oneness is this mind is to be fully open so that the creator and the universe can become one, that there is no otherness, and that life is really a place of serenity. It's a place what we call eternal life or nirvana, and the flow places where time stands still or it just rushes by, where we're just one with the creative and the creator. And so I know my time is about to close here. So this is kind of the other piece that I just want to leave. Wonder and doubt will propel us towards flow. but it's circular. It's not linear. We don't get someplace and then we're in nirvana, or we're in heaven, or we're in eternal life. It's a place where we can return to over and over again, so we can connect more deeply and more passionately about what we're doing. And because if we don't wonder and we don't doubt, then we become surface. So thanks for listening.